you know? Hello, can you hear me? Am I coming through okay there? F's in chat if not. Excellent. Oh, hello there. Bit of a delay there. Nice. I'm not sure if there shouldn't have been audio coming through on the pre-show screen there, but oh well. Hi, I'm Dom. I'll just make a couple more posts, make sure people know that we're starting. But yeah, season 5 Q&A. We survived. I survived. You survived. Walt didn't. Yeah. Let me know if the audio levels are okay. And we'll get started. So, patrons. Had a bit of trouble, running a little bit behind schedule. Couldn't quite figure some streaming stuff out because streaming is not something that I know too much about at this point. But yeah, my eye line might be a little bit off today because I'm having to use a second monitor because one of the many struggles that I've had with 2022 is that my laptop is dying like crazy and the monitor no longer works. So you're over there, but the only monitor I'm looking at that works is over here. So yeah. So, did Beast survive? It's not looking good. Season 5. Why don't we start? You guys can start getting some questions into chat if you'd like, if you've got any specific questions that you have ahead of time, and I'll just start talking. Yes, Season 5 is over. I survived. It seemed touch and go for a little bit there, with many technical and personal things going on. It's just a rough year, but we made it, and it's over. And I think people were happy with how it turned out. So that's good. That's all that matters. It was, yeah. We're getting close to the end with this with the narrative at this point. I believe that next season, I think. Well, I'm pretty sure at this point, is the one that'll wrap up this storyline. This version of Misthome, at least. I have an idea for what a new version of Misthome could be after this. I think people will like. But yeah, I think that it's just about time with season 6 to wrap things up in a nice kind of a nice bow. I don't know. Yeah, I think that things are coming together really nicely. I know a couple of Q&As ago I said, oh yeah, 10 seasons. And then as I've been writing, I've realised that you can have multiple storylines happening at once, and that's actually better. And it doesn't string things along too much. And you can kind of have multiple storylines meshed together and kind of, yeah, all dovetail at the right moments, and I think that's happening. I've started writing season 6 a little bit ago. It's coming along. I haven't written as much as I would like. I've had some troubles writing, but the plot is pretty much all in my head. I just got to get it out. But yeah, we're almost there. And yeah, after that, I'll tell some more about what the plans are for that another time. But yeah, I think you guys are going to be happy with how some things wrap up from this point on. Yes. So, yeah, get some questions into the chat if you'd like, and while that's coming together, and I'll be able to start answering some questions, there's something else that I can talk to you about. It's a new project. It's a new project that I've been working on for a little while now. It's called Tales from the Low City. We've got some wonderful art there as a thumbnail done by my partner M. And yeah, it's a new audio drama that I've been working on. It's going to be fairly different from Mist Home in some ways, but in other ways, well, I think because it's still written by me, I think that hopefully you guys will have some stuff that you recognize in the tone and the But yeah, what I've got planned for this is very much that Mist Home was, as I was coming up with the storyline for Mist Home and the setting for Mist Home, inexplicable things happening, kind of all coming together in this one setting where anything can happen. Just really creating a setting where any story I write can be a Mist Home story. So that when I was starting out and I didn't have my style, didn't have the tone, didn't have the process all worked out, it didn't matter too much because whatever I wrote, it could become a Mist Home story. It can start as a Mist Home. It can start as whatever, but it'll be a Mist Home story somehow. And that was really good, getting those first 2 seasons together, getting the stories getting any story and having those stories just be Mist Home stories, and that's how I found out what a Mist Home story is. But as time's gone on, that's meant that we have an issue where any story I do write can be a Mist Home story, so it should be. I should be writing this. This is my main show. Why am I writing this if it's not going to be a Mist Home story? Which is not a horrible problem to have. But yeah, it has meant that I've had ideas for spin-off shows, not spin-off shows, for alternate stories and just different stories. And then I've been like, well, but no, that's a Mist Home story. And there are a couple of exhibits that started out as me being like, oh, what if I had this as a different show? And then it's like, but I am behind on Mist Home stories, so that's just become a Mist Home story. Tales from the Low City is different to Mist Home in just about every creative process sort of way, especially in that with Mist Home I've started with the individual stories and built a world out of that. Tales from the Low City is, I'm starting with the world, I'm building out a world, and there's a setting, and then I'm going to tell stories in it. And yes, it's going to be a single narrator. It's just going to be me telling you stories about this strange little world that I've created. And it's, I kind of have the vibe of it that it's the sort. I know some people, a decent number of people, like to listen to my show and other shows as they go to sleep. For some reason, I listen to YouTube video essays as I'm going to sleep. I don't know, I'm weird. So this is definitely the sort of show where it's just like you can just drift off and have it playing. The vibe is basically I've created a world that is a post-apocalyptic kind of vibe of an underground city inhabited by very strange, unique species of creatures that all have to live together. We're starting out in the first episode, we're starting with the Skitterlings, if anyone remembers the strange little teasers. They didn't start out as teasers, but then I was like, what if I just included people called Skitterlings? And the idea is just you learn, every episode you learn something new about the city, and it just kind of lives in your head, and I want to just kind of inhabit a part of your head as you create your own version of the Low City in your mind, and maybe you create your own projects that kind of exist in this setting. I think the audio only is such a really potent medium for having everyone having their own version of the story living in their head. Everyone has their own
image of every character in every show, even if the shows tend to give more descriptions of characters than Mist Home does necessarily. Yeah, I'm really hopeful that people will like this setting and just it'll just kind of inhabit a part of their mind. Maybe they'll create their own version of the setting, and then yeah, I've got a friend named Nick Duff who creates. He's worked on a couple of tabletop RPG systems and settings, and we've been having chats about maybe there's a. We're in the spitballing stage at the moment, but yeah, of maybe there's an RPG game sort of thing set in the Low City, where yeah, it's just storytelling. It's collaboratively creating your own version of the Low City, and yeah, I don't think I'm doing a very good way of describing it, but yeah, basically, it's just a weird setting that you get to kind of grow to understand over time, and you'll meet people in it, but it's not really going to have a overarching plot at this point, but it's going to be more of an overarching history as you come to understand the setting and its people, and past events become more significant as time goes on. It's almost kind of like an ant farm that I'm kind of creating and then prodding at and seeing what stories come out of it as time goes on. Planning on creating a Discord server and that sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe it's. I feel like it's might be going overboard to say it's a fairly unique idea, but I think that it's definitely not a unique idea, but it's definitely going to be a very specific vibe, I think, and I'm really hopeful that people connect with it and find a lot to love about it. The plan is, at the moment, I think I'll start in a couple of weeks releasing new episodes every 2 weeks for a little while. Just the first few episodes will be fortnightly, like Mist Home is, and then once we've got a good foothold in the world, and you understand the different species of weird creatures that live in the Low City and their relationships and their societies, then it'll be a monthly show after that. But yeah, people just now reacting to skittlings in my chat, so I think maybe the delay is quite significant. But yeah, we'll transition to the Q&A now, and if you have questions about Low City that I haven't mentioned, because there definitely are things that I've forgotten to say, yeah, slip those in there. But yeah, other than Low City, I've also got a couple of other scripts and stuff that I've been working on. But they'd be projects that need other actors, and I am terrified of asking people to be in things and working on that thing, which is why every single character in Mist Home is voiced by someone that I either already knew or already had a parasocial relationship with. So I felt like I could ask them. But yeah, I have other scripts that I've written for a couple of other things that I just haven't done anything with, that maybe I will someday. But the thing about that is I'm really not sure that I can have Mist Home and another full cast thing at the same time. I think that might be a bit much for my organizational abilities, my mental health, and my finances, because I pay people to do this, obviously. Yeah, but if Patreons, your Patreons here, I could just post the scripts to the Patreon at some point, and maybe people would like that. I don't know. Sound off if you'd like some scripts for some things that I'm not sure if they're good, that I haven't produced yet. Speaking on that, not sure if they're good, just want to mention something that, I don't want it to go unmentioned. Mist Home up till now, it's been just me as the sole creator behind it, writer, and most of the characters. But I've also had a close friend, Zane, who is the head of That's Not Canon Productions, which is just like the collective. It's not even really it's not what do you call it, a network or anything. It's it's just sharing resources and that sort of thing. And over the course of season 5, we had Zane has had some personal difficulties that's led to kind of stepping back from things. So I haven't had Zane around for a little while. Everything's fine between us. It's just Zane's own life. So yeah, I haven't had access to a proper recording studio for the last half of season 5, and I'm not sure that that's going to change in season 6 or any other projects going forward. I've just been doing it in a room at this point without proper soundproofing, which has changed some. It hasn't changed things too much. Hopefully, you guys haven't noticed. But yeah, that's yeah. Hopefully that won't affect things. Hopefully things will get better, and hopefully that will not affect having the head of retrieval in season 6. I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want, It's Zane's own personal life, so not going to get into things, but I don't want it to go unsaid that I've had an important collaborator at my side for a lot of this, and I don't want to have their absence not be unstated. It wouldn't be fair to Zane. Which is also, Zane also would always read my scripts for everything, and then mostly would just give me the note of, yeah, that's good. It's increasingly as time has gone on, which is usually all I need, and just need that bit of extra encouragement. It's just like, no, this isn't gibberish, you're fine, and I haven't had that, so that's probably a big part of why things are slowing down a little for me, but yeah, Shaka, totally, what the fuck? Yeah, things are fine. Season 5. Yeah, so Tales from the Low City, release date in the next few weeks. It's just a matter of, I think that I could say 2 weeks or something, but then I haven't actually recorded the first episode, which won't take long, but I don't want to set a specific date and then record it and find myself really wanting to fiddle with things and really wanting to actually have a more detailed soundscape or whatever, or need to find some more. Yeah, so we'll see. Probably by the end of this, maybe at end of this month, early next month, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Let's scroll back through for questions. All right. So, will we ever hear the voice of the head of patronage? That is a good question. The head of patronage. It's kind of like the. A couple other things in the show where it's just like the Crystal Skull, where we just kind of keep mentioning the head of patronage almost as a joke, because the idea with all of this shit that keeps happening and the multiple serious alternatural incidents and the lockdown and everything that is affecting the museum and has at this point led to the deaths of a significant amount of its staff. The idea that it's a functioning tourist attraction still is very funny to me. And so the idea that there is this put upon person out there who is handling that side of things is very funny to me. I don't know if it's a funny enough thing to actually ever address directly. I have this fantasy idea that I reach out to Paul F. Tompkins and we get an episode from the head of patronage's perspective where it's just Paul F. Tompkins having a breakdown as the head of patronage trying to keep this place afloat. Because the idea that the museum needs money, would also be funny to me with all the stuff that we know about it. Just oh yeah, the head of patronage is out talking with outside investors and trying to get that under control. And handle the public relations side of things is very funny to me. So yeah, I have this idea that we might have a story set, just starring the head of patronage at some point, trying to keep things afloat. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. The head of patronage, maybe we'll have a cameo at some point this season, just be but yeah, I think that the idea of this person who has the most mundane understanding of the museum should be kept separate from the storyline sort of thing, just to keep that joke intact. I don't know. We'll see. When the guy... Okay, there we are. So, will we get to meet Mother 2, Too Fast, Too Furious within this storyline? Mother 2. Let's address that. Season 5, at one point, early in writing it, Season 5 was going to end with the mother dying. Season 5 was going to end with the mother dying in Mortal Kombat with the Beast. And things obviously changed a lot since then. Because, like I've said before, I have plans. I have plans of like the beats, and I have plans of the big moments and where things are heading, and then I let the characters show me how we get there. And in the process of the characters show me how we get there, like it's the characters' version of events, and the place we get to just isn't always that. It isn't always this the same thing that I thought it would be, and it's better. It's definitely better if it's more emotionally honest and real and consistent. To have the characters' version of events be the one that we see, but yeah, at one point we were going to meet the other mother. The season was one of the ending scenes of the season was going to be the other mother coming to the museum, having sensed that our version of Clockwork Mother had died, and that she needed to come and take care of the Clockwork child. So yeah, I don't currently have any idea or plans whether that might still happen at some point, or how that might happen. But yeah, that's a behind the scenes thing. That was at one point, this season was going to be a little more that sort of story, you know. Yeah, no current plans. When the guide switched up the intro Noria Incinerator, how long had that switch been planned? It had not been planned. I do pay attention to what people are saying about the show. I'm not like constantly spying on you guys that you know of, but people were making like it's upsetting that the guide keeps saying please incinerate me, and I would always just thought it was just like it's just the intro to the show. Oh, it's like it's just a canned thing that the guide doesn't even think about how it's saying, and then people are saying, man, that's kind of messed up. So I was just like, well, I already have this big emotional scene where the guide is having kind of having a real reaction to Walt's death, whatever you want to call what happened to him. What if one of the things in there was the guide acknowledging how messed up it is that it doesn't think too much about hey, you should incinerate me if things keep going, if things go weird. It's just like that, like, tying the fact that I hadn't thought about changing that into it, where the guide hasn't thought about it either. The guy's just like, oh yeah, that's just what I say to people, and then it has like a moment of clarity where it says, why do I still say that? What does that say about all of this? So yeah, people pointed that out, and I said, yeah, do you know what, that's a fair point. So I quickly wrote up a new one in a recording session, and I incorporated that. And then after that, I saw someone commenting on that, being like, oh, but why has it changed? What does that mean? Oh, I'm not sure, I'm suspicious. Why has it suddenly changed? And I just said, what do you want from me? What do you... Yeah, you wanted it to change, and then you were like, but why did it change? It's fine though, I'm not bad. When writing guide narration, do you find knowing it's for audio affects how you write the prose? I mean, definitely there's a difference between narration and dialogue. Yeah, because I try to have a naturalistic sort of style for dialogue. Where you have characters like interrupt each other and talk over each other, and they have their own idiolect kind of thing, where maybe they say kind of thing randomly inserted into a sentence. Where, yeah, everyone has their own way of speaking, and they kind of say things that aren't grammatically correct, or, they all have their own way of speaking, whereas the guide is speaking very specifically when it's for a narration, using big words, having its little quirks where it is telling a objective accounting of events, and then throws in its own little aside, or its own beliefs about the story that's going on. And yeah, it's definitely a difference between those two. I'm writing a longer story. If you can see from the transcripts, when I'm writing the stories, I don't really write it as dialogue. I'm writing a story, and then I'm just reading prose. Yeah. So there is definitely a difference in just that it's less naturalistic. It's more precise. It uses more evocative words than the simple words that people generally use in conversation. Yeah. will the guide ever have that one conversation with the head of retrieval? That's a fun thing. Hopefully, hopefully Zane's doing well. I'm planning to. I'm planning to address it for sure. Like, I'm not having that just as a as a bleak thing that they've just kind of had a falling out. No, this is more fun not to address, actually. Yeah, I'll address it. I'll address it in the show eventually. You'll see how I'm coming to it, but I don't want to spoil anything, you know? Other projects, I have a reference to Deadman into future seasons. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like I might have already done something. I don't know. Did I? I don't know. For some reason, I feel like I already snuck something in somewhere. Maybe. I do kind of like the idea of having them be very separate. Having everything kind of tie in and reference each other always feels a little... I don't want to say like MCU, you know, everything has to be a reference sort of thing. I don't know. But yeah, maybe. I feel like maybe I considered having something specific. Yeah. I mean, really, the guide and and Dixon from Deadman are kind of similar characters in some ways that you'll especially see as we're going forward. There's definitely some identity stuff going on there, but I think that they're different enough, you know, with their own versions of who they are and all. But yeah, I don't think I've had, yeah. Let's see. Oh, people are excited. Sorry, I'm just going back through the chat now. Oh dear. Where are we going? No, Crystal Skull. Don't know what you're talking about there. Sorry, I've just had chat drop down to the bottom, so I'm... Yeah, people... Yeah, I'll totally start posting some scripts in there, especially. Yeah, let's... Tales from Low City... Thank you for pretending you couldn't tell the change in studio. Yes, people would have been very upset. I did know that people would be very upset. It would have been very cruel to kill the mother. Did I use other pronouns? I still think that the guide it's maybe I don't know. Sometimes sometimes I feel like maybe I want to change the guide's pronouns to reflect its changing version of itself, but then I don't know. But then I think that doesn't need to be something like one of the things that I've found compelling about developing the guide story is that it's becoming its own version of itself. But unlike a lot of other stories about AI that grow and change, I don't think that the AI is becoming human. I don't think it wants to become human. It's just becoming a more self-assured and assertive version of itself. It is becoming itself, what it wants to be. I don't. There have definitely been some some points where I think about what if the guide got a body, and I'm like, but then it's less the guide. It doesn't need to want to become more than an AI. It just needs to know how to become itself and all it can be. Yeah. Guide got to curse. Yeah, the guide deserves to swear. It's had a rough time, and people were... I was definitely leaning into that with the... asking people, being like, oh, why will the guide swear? And then I'm just like, well, I'll have the guide almost swear and then not, and then you'll want it more and you'll want it more, and then at the most perfect moment, the guide swear. There's been build up to it where I think I had the guide say shit when the beast finally ran away. Was that one? I don't remember. Anyway, but yeah, the way the guide has just been building up its tension and becoming more frustrated, and then it finally lets it out at just the right moment. There were definitely times earlier where I almost had the guide swear, but then didn't. I almost had the guide at the end of season 4 when it calls the beast a dumb animal, right up until in the studio, I had it say that that the beast is a dumb fucking animal, just as a real, just like, yeah, following orders without thinking about it was exactly what a dumb fucking animal would do. And then I was like, no, because calling it a dumb animal, that moment is all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be, the guide swore. The guide said a swear for the first time. It's almost more emotionally cutting for it not to swear in that moment, because the guide is just being very blunt, very, not even particularly vicious, just being like, yeah, this is what I think of you. You thought that we were friends, and you are nothing to me. So yeah, so I don't know. I think honestly, let's be real. Honestly, sometimes I misgender the guide because the guide and I kind of, there's overlap there, and I'm misgendering myself. That's really what's happening there. Is that I think of the guide as myself sometimes, and then I say he, him for myself. And I'm like, but you're a they them. What are you doing? Yeah, pronouns for everyone. Good point. Yeah, I haven't really mentioned that on like the Mistimes Twitter and all that, because sometimes I like to pretend that that's an in-character thing. Sometimes I'm just like, well, let's not run through the character names too much, and let's not, I don't know. But yeah, totally. So guide, generally it's. Then who else do we have? We'll go order appearance. Restoration, played by Liz. Both Restoration and Liz are she, her. Head of Retrieval is played by Zane. Zane uses any pronouns, but Head of Retrieval is he, him. Astrid is she, her, played by Lena Moon, who is also she, her. The head of research is also she, her, but I think that it's I don't know. That's not something that would come up with the head of research. But if she did some, I have the vibe that if she did some soul searching, she would be like, no, yes, perhaps I am something else, but she's just too busy. She's just like, no, why would I examine myself? I can examine this instead, this other thing. Walt is he, him, played by Ben Russell, also he, him. Eagle, he, him, played by Kel Anderson, who is he, him. That's Beast. Oh yeah, my characters. Beast is also it's Stranger. He, him by default, but I think that it's Stranger. I think probably has changed that a few times over his existence. Wish Engine and the Intelligence, who could possibly say. And then we have the Queen, the Fey Queen, played by Hero. Hero uses they, them, and the Queen. Yeah, the Queen is fun. The Queen also uses they, them. That is something where the Queen I wrote at the end of season 4 was just like, oh, you're going to meet the Queen, and and you're just like, that's obviously, Queen is generally a feminine gendered term. And then I realized that, like, I did a guest spot on, I don't remember what the timeline there was, but I did a guest spot on Monstrous Agonies, which is done by H.R. Owen, Hero. And eventually I was just like, oh, actually, favour for a favour, I did your show, you could do mine. I think that you do really well for the Queen, but I was just like, oh, I have already said Queen, so I posed it to Hero. I went to them in a Twitter DM, and I was like, hey, I know you are they, them. I know you're non-binary. How would you feel about playing the man with the voice's mother? Because I knew that the man with the voice, the Queen would. I knew well ago that the Queen was the man with the voice's mother, and Hero was like, yeah, I don't know. I actually feel that I don't want to play a female character. I don't want to play a mother, and sort of thing. And I said, okay, well, Queen is now gender neutral. This is a fey being of untold power. It does not have to abide by our rules of gender. I can just go through every single instance that I mention the Queen in season 5 with a she, her, because it doesn't come up in season 4 before I wrote all this. It's a she, her, and then said, okay, Queen is now genderless, unknowable being. How do you feel about that? And Hero was very on board with Queen being a terrible genderless, unknowable thing instead of just a mother sort of thing. So yeah, that worked out even better. That's so much better, I think, just having like because I don't think that fairy lore has too much gender stuff in it generally, which seems so strange. Like you get some stuff here and there in that they're very androgynous is a thing, but people throughout history just haven't thought of gender in that sort of way, and haven't thought about fairies in that sort of way. So it's just like, yeah, their approach to the world is very different from ours. Their approach to their own gender and that sort of thing is different to ours as well. That's not even like a huge thing that needs to be addressed. It's just, yeah, you don't get what's going on with them. The man with the voice has been called the man all the way up till now. When they were young, they were called she her, and you don't really know why that's changed. We're still calling the man with the voice because that's what we know their name is? ? Yeah, intentionally in the confrontation between the guide and the queen, I was mixing up the pronouns for the man with the voice on purpose to have that kind of, partly the guide slipping up and being confused about what the vibe is there, and partly just be like prodding at just like, hey, what do I use here? And the queen is just like such a different understanding of this that it doesn't even faze them. So yeah, that's, I think, everyone. I think that's all the characters. Yeah, all right. Let's see. Oh, the writing guide narration. Does it knowing it's mainly meant to be listened to instead of read affect your writing? Sure. Increasingly, yeah. I think early on I definitely was just writing it to be read, but writing to be heard, I don't know. Like, I think that I generally write. I mean, my background is kind of a mix of theatre. For those who don't know, I used to do theatre. My degree is in. My more recent degree is backstage theatre work, and then COVID meant that I don't do that very much. So yeah, I kind of always have thought of reading and listening as not being too different. Like, you know, I don't listen to instead of read. They're not that different for me, and I think not that different in a way that a lot of other people don't write. Like they write to be read, and I think that I already always kind of have thought that things that I write feel like they should be read out loud and read. You should be hearing from someone. It's like kind of a storytelling kind of vibe. So I don't know that the Mist Home setting stories, the exhibit stories, are necessarily different in that way from what I would otherwise have written. The main difference, I think, that is that because they are a kind of objective and past tense sort of perspective, I think, and we're not having like much dialogue at all in them. I'm focusing on writing the stories in a way that I can tell them as a single voice without having to do, he said this, oh, and then they said this in response, and that sort of thing. I really try to avoid having that, because I think that when you're listening to a story, I think that is frustrating. So I do try to avoid having too much dialogue in those. It's almost always in the exhibit stories, the guide mentions that someone said something describing what they said instead of having a he/she dialogue at any point. So that is definitely something that I try to make sure to have, so that I don't have to have repetitive, this character said this character said that. I just describe the conversation, you know. So that's something, I guess I would say. Not Ghost Eagle. I don't know, maybe. Yeah, that's another thing. This season, I wanted to. There were a couple of things towards the middle and end of the season where I
I wanted the guide to be able to, because having the guide be in lots of places at once is really good at first for having lots of stories going on at the same time, but then for those stories or for branches of those stories ending, there's an implication that the guide could just be left there forever. So I don't remember. It was before this season I decided that maybe even when I was writing the void behind Glassway 419, if that's the right number, where it encounters that other presence that causes it to die. The idea that it would learn to repurpose that death as a way to delete its own copies. That was a very much a thing that I had in my head. Like, oh yeah, this is how it's going to finally snip off the end of the Fey dimensions, or through that Glassway storyline for now. How that's going to be nipped off cleanly, having no more copies of the guide on that side, is that it can delete itself now. And that's also, I needed to be able to. I knew that Walt was going to take it to the other place with the intelligence and then be reconstituted into the intelligence. I needed a way to have the guide not be there anymore. But then I had this issue for a while of, well, yeah, you've set up in your own head that the guide will be able to delete itself, but how do I satisfyingly actually pay that off? How do I have the guide not just go, I have learned that I can delete myself so that I can blah blah blah. And eventually I was just like, wouldn't it be funny if I really just messed with people who are still distraught over Eagle's death by having Kel come back and record some more dialogue in that voice? So I don't know, maybe that'll come back. I don't think so. Because that would be maybe somewhere down the line. Because I do have a plan for the Mistome Museum. I think the podcast The Mistome Museum ends next season, and then I have an idea for a new story. That's going to be a different name, maybe in the same feed, I don't know. But like maybe in that version of the story, that will come up again. But I don't know that I want to have that happen 2 seasons of the row. Just to stop having... just to not have that be like a once a season thing, especially since like that feels like a way to create more emotional turmoil, and I'm really trying to bring everything full circle, bring everything down for a clean landing in the final season, have everything pay off nicely. So I don't know, but yeah, that was a fun thing. A lot of this season actually really came together. Not late in production, but I had all these ideas. I didn't know how to bring them together, and then the idea of Walt, the character who, a big part of Mistome's vibe is that the surreal and macabre is actually exciting and interesting and wonderful, and then having a more typical supernatural investigator character come in and be very different to the other characters. That came in like moderately late in the story, in the percolation of it. I was really... Things kind of weren't coming together, I didn't know how it was going to work, and then I was getting into the Arkham Horror Living card game this year, or last year, and I was like, there it is. I have I have an Arkham Horror character come into this storyline, and be just completely at odds with the rest of it, and then everything kind of starts clicking into place, and it's like, oh, but then the other characters realize that the reason that Walt is the way he is that he's taken all this grief and self-loathing on himself, and the other characters realize that too late, that maybe he just needed some help, and then it's like that is what makes the guide realize that maybe the beast, it still can't forgive the beast for what it did, but maybe it's just got a different perspective on things. Maybe it can ask it for a little bit of help.
and then, at the end of the season, we bring it all down to the guide going to the head of research and being like, after learning from the intelligence that her path is self-destruction, she can't be helped, it decides to keep that from her and be like, well, maybe it's enough to try. So yeah, it all kind of expanded out from... it all came together from that one point, really. Of just bringing in that one character early on, and then having that become, the narrative pull through of the whole storyline. And even Walt dies halfway through the season. I originally had thought that he would be another, near the end, and have both storylines come to their conclusions around the same time. And then talking with Zane, it was like, oh, well, why? We can have this storyline happen much more concisely, and it can still be very effective, or maybe more for some people if they thought that Walt was going to stick around for a longer time. And then it's just like, no, nobody would talk to Walt. Nobody really figured out what was going on, and so he took what matters into his own hands. Yeah, and I think Ben did a great job with that character. I think I learned a bit about directing, which I still don't really. It's not my strength. But yeah, directing him with the vocals, we had some technical issues, but other than that, it was great, because it reminded me that that I need to give my actors specificity, and not because I was like, I don't want to tell them too much. I want to let them find the character. I want to let them figure out what they want to do with it. But then Ben was just like, well, no, you have to tell me. Sometimes, especially in this weird fantasy setting, I'm just like, in the final moments of Walt's storyline where he gets absorbed into the intelligence or whatever, in the script and for the audience, it's supposed to be incomprehensible what's happening. It's just, it's who could say what's really happening? I'm just like, yeah, it's just, I just tell Ben, it's just like, yeah, it's just really weird. Like, he's kind of, you can't even imagine what's happening to him. It's just a really weird sort of unsettling moment. And then Ben's just pausing and goes, yeah, but I have to kind of know to act for this. And I'm like, oh, right, okay. Well, okay, so the way I imagine it, outside of what the audience knows, giving the actors more than the audience is important, clearly. And it's a simple thing, but you forget about it because, some actors really want to be let find their own version of it, and you can work back and forth, and that's really satisfying. But sometimes you got to give the actors more than the audience. I think was something I learned there, which is good. Right. Was there anything else? Let's see. Yes. Hero was fantastic as the Queen. What is wrong with this thing? Yeah, the vibe. Yeah, with the man just having it be a complete crapshoot. What any pronouns anyone uses. Just because, just like it's weird. Like, you don't. The vibe is all over the place. You don't know. It's a fairy. What are you talking about? Trying to apply human logic to this. Does anyone have any more questions? I think I've gone through all of the ones that we have here. Let's see. Come on. Let's see. Man with the voice always planned to be a Fey prince of some sort. I always definitely had the idea that it was a Fey direction for that character. That right from early on, in season 1, the correction that is just like, I am not the devil, thank you very much, is a hint that there's something specific going on there. Always definitely not, because I never had, in the first season I didn't really have things planned. I didn't have things planned out. As I've said before, so much of the storyline in this show, a huge amount of it has come because of COVID. Where season 1 ends with lockdown, it ends with involuntary isolation, which is a play on, at the time, voluntary isolation, which is the words people were using at that point. And then from there, it was just like, well, okay, why is there been a lockdown? Why, blah, blah, blah. At the time, it was just like we're ending the season. It hasn't done, incredible numbers or anything, but I'll keep trying to ride it, see you next time. Oh, there's been a lockdown, who knows why. And then, yeah, over the course of writing season 2, it was, it decided that it was the man that was actually behind it. When did it become certain that it was Faye, though? I actually couldn't really say. It was always real. It was always Faye, like in ways, like because the way that the man's actions have never quite made 100% of sense. Although there is explanations are coming for some things. I do have answers to a lot of it, but just the way that sometimes it's about deals and specific wordings and inscrutable motivations and all that. There's always been Faye to the character, and then as for Faye Prince, I guess during season 4, I suppose when I was why was the man and the beast, what drew them together, and it was just the man wanted to be free from responsibility and all that, wanted to be a wild thing living in the woods, and it's just like, well, it had to be something significant for a character of this power, and running away from responsibility, it's like, well, running away from the Fae court makes sense. Yeah, it just kind of naturally kind of came together, I guess. Avoid using actual names of department heads. Yeah, so head of restoration is Diana. Well, is there a reason? I mean, there's the reason that the characters are a little. They know the power of true names and all that. That is something that I had as an idea from early on, that it only that the idea of true names, because I just find that really interesting. And again ties into fairy lore, obviously, with Rumpelstiltskin and all that. That names are significant. So the idea that these characters are very professional, I guess, is they're very careful and professional, and so the head of retrieval using Diana as the head of restoration's name tells you something about their relationship, I think, that I haven't really wanted to step over with anyone, with the other character lines. The head of restoration being Diana to the head of retrieval tells you that they have a good working relationship despite their very different vibes. They might actually, like, you might think that they could dislike each other based on some of their differences, but the fact that he calls her Diana, that they know each other. They are pretty close as work colleagues, and I kind of feel like maybe for other characters it hasn't come up yet, that sort of moment. I think that, there's also just like the it's a little quirky and weird. It's just that it's the head of retrieval, restoration, and research. We've got those characters. They're just their titles to most people. But yeah, there's kind of a, I don't know. I like that character note that these two characters, one of them calls the other by her actual name. I like that. Just yeah. Yeah. So yeah. It does have me back in the mist time. It's an abundance of caution for the most part on the characters, that they don't use their real names, but then I like having that between those two characters. And I do have ideas for what the other characters' names are, but yeah, I liked what it says about those two. And yeah, let's see, what else can I bring up? What happened in season 5? Good lord, what a year. Yeah, this season really some of the it changed a fair bit over the course of the writing. It just in the it became more gentle and more gentle. I guess a little more bittersweet rather than just kind of yeah. There were definitely some bleaker notes to end out on. It was definitely going to be a much more bittersweet ending, whereas this you have some conflicted emotions about what happened with the Beast, but with Walt, but ultimately it's well, we made it. We know more than we did before. We can keep moving forward, and that's all you can do sometimes. Yeah, let's see storylines from this season. Cool. Could the guide use real names in the Feyway? How do you mean? Like, use the manipulate people using their names? In the way that because the Beast knows how to use Mistone's name, that sort of thing. Do you mean that? Because I do. I kind of have the idea that the using someone's name against them is something that you have to know how to do. I don't like. I think that it's kind of a significant thing, especially since we in this season we finally revealed that what the man with the voice can really do is talk to understand your heart and therefore be able to control you, and have that be kind of similar to the way that using someone's name against them works. I think that I like having it significant, that someone can do that. Um, yeah. Yeah, why not? I'll say it here. For the question of the head of researchers being D. I hadn't intended that, but then when it occurred to me too, and so I just deleted the name that I was going to have the head of research's name come up, and then when I thought, oh wait, no, actually totally makes sense that this is D. I just deleted that. I just deleted mentioning her real name, and let it be ambiguous, and I'll probably keep it ambiguous. I might add some more hints in, but I like it being a maybe. I like the idea that that you can put some pieces together, but yeah, you're not 100% on that, because yeah, there's always got to be a bit of mystery. Yeah. Was the letter from the guitarist really his own? What was the letter from the guitarist? What did? Oh dear. Let me see. What happened in this show 3 years ago? So the it was the correction that led the man sent in, and the guy. I do think that the letter was honest. I think that that was because in my head the idea of what happened there was that there was a genuine mistake. Let's see. Send around a guitar which belonged to. Send around the guitar which belonged to. Yes, according to I did not make any kind of deal with the devil, and she was forced to send herself. Yes, right. Okay, so it was all just a big misunderstanding. Uh, I like that. I like the ambiguity there. Um, yeah, realizes mistake again. Just was more fun. Yeah, I like the ambiguity. I don't want to say what because you have this whole elaborate story about it, and then the parties involved being like, no, we don't want to. But it's yeah, I like leaving that ambiguous whether or not
the man made a mistake and the guitarist was actually just really good at the guitar. I I think that's just a funny detail, and it's not really the sort of thing I would do these days with the show because of course that's very early on, but I like leaving that ambiguous. Uh, yeah, so could the guide use real names in the Feyway? Yeah, I think that I mean maybe it's. I think that that's something that any living thing could maybe learn to use because like the implication with the beast is that the because of its interactions with the man who understood hearts and was able to understand other people to a point where it like just could manipulate them using just his voice. I think that my version in my head is that it was able to teach the beast to do that, or the beast was just able to intuit it. So I think anyone could. It's just something that's difficult. It's not something that anyone can do but could do, and presumably the guide could do that as well. Um, yeah, it's just a matter of being able to do it. That's another fun thing that I managed to tie back the idea of reading people's hearts instead of their minds or anything, and then control them, and having that kind of tied back to season one with the Bacchus Road, where it lives in your heart, not in your head. I like that, even if it is a little bit Kingdom Hearts. So yeah, there's been a couple of things like that. I actually at the beginning of season five, writing season five, I almost had myself like a really nice a gift given to myself by Past Dom with the bracelet because I'd almost written it to be perfect in that it's made of bone, and as I was writing season 5 I was like, oh, what if it's made of iron or silver, and then I went back and was like, no, it's made of bone. But if it was made of iron it would have been perfect because the Fae couldn't touch it, would have been great, but no. Oh well.
I didn't plan. I don't plan that far ahead. I do plan far ahead, but not in those specifics. So, oh well. The guide became the museum and could therefore have mistome used against it. Yeah, it could have changed. I mean, it has changed in the past. It has. I don't think that it's like a. You get your name changed by Dpol, or you just start calling yourself something different. Something different. Like it's about who you are. It's about using the name that exists in your heart, sort of thing. Or, so the guide had come to think of itself as the museum. As Mistome, without even realizing it, had come to think of itself as more than just an audio tour guide, and so by talking to it for an extended period of time and knowing the things that its friend had taught it, the beast was able to figure out that the guide could be compelled using the name Mistome. So Mistome is its name because it is Mistome. You know, it's yeah, and it's possible that that its perception of itself could change again in the future. But yeah, I have some more stuff I'm thinking about with season 6 on that. But yeah. Any more questions? You don't. I'll just take a look at the stories from this season. What did I really like? I really liked the Fata Morgana story. I thought that was really, really fun and weird, and I wrote it in a different voice to usual. I don't overuse the different framing device of having it be a journal or a final letter to a loved one, but there's a plane going overhead in case you couldn't hear. It's almost gone. But yeah, I liked writing that story in that character's voice, and the idea of the Fata Morgana, and then having it be very, very alternatural in nature, but in a very strange and ambiguous way that is kind of just very, very strange and vague in a way that it's just like it's not the story not telling you things, it's that the character at the heart of it, because we've got this framing device of it being a letter, it's the character not being able to describe what he's actually seen and understand. He's gone to a different place where everything is familiar and yet unfamiliar. Different places feel like the homes of friends whose home he never visited, that sort of thing. He's trying to put it into words and he can't possibly. I liked writing that one. I will mention as well, as with past inter-season breaks, I'll release some stories as well, some upcoming stories from season 6 that I'll write and record. I won't start doing that just yet, because I want to get Low City all up together. But yeah, that'll be that. Some more stories will be coming, and I think that even after the Mistome Museum ends, and I don't know, the Mistome Protocol becomes the new storyline or whatever that winds up happening in the future. I think I'll still write Mistome exhibits for Patreon, just because it's a fun way to write. It's a fun mode. Yeah. This season, one of the earlier stories that I wrote for this one, this season, just one actually didn't come into it. It's slated for season 6 because I just never found a place for it. It's fun. It's funny how that happens sometimes. Yeah. What else is there that's interesting to say about this one? I don't know. I had some good audience prompts for this season as well. The patrons who the curator level patrons give me prompts. The Irish elk antlers, that was a really good one. I really liked the story that came out of that one, because it's a really good image of just the antlers being all that remains, and this ancient extinct creature. That was fun. I sometimes it's daunting to have to work from a prompts, but then it leads to fun things. Yeah. I'll give it a few more minutes, but if anyone has any more questions, please by all means get them about Mistome, about other stuff that I'm working on, or anything about anything really. Yeah, more than happy to answer any more, or if there's any questions I missed, which I think I've got everything. So I think the pacing of this season was also something that I was worried about, but I think it came together as well because I had like 4 storylines happening at once. Oh, come to you naturally, or something you actively do to get inspiration? Sometimes both. I got a note, the notes app in my phone that just has random words in it every now and again that I just I think about and I go, oh, that's something, and then I usually come back to it eventually and come up with a story. Like I got. You scroll back far enough, and there's most of them are things that wound up being in this. So I've got Scrimshaw, got the Oubliettes, a skeleton. That wound up happening. The Fata Morgana, that's in there. Nope. Look, there's Eldritch Investigator. There's Walt. Yeah. So I'll just come up with a word sometimes where I'm just like, yeah, that's it, and then I write it down, and then I call it just percolating, where I just let the ideas kind of simmer in my head, and sometimes they merge together and different stories become part of the same story. And then sometimes, it comes with a concept or just the object, because, the storylines in the exhibits are based around objects. You just come up with a mundane object that you might stumble across and write a story based around that. Like the one that I wrote on stream, which was a Patreon prompt. It was an umbrella. No, it was a crystallized statuette of an umbrella, and that's one where it was it came quite quite naturally, because it's just like, well, it's an umbrella, it's crystallized, use an umbrella to keep it off you, so it's kept crystals off and become crystallized in the process, and then it expanded from there. Where there's another one, another Patreon prompt that hasn't been published yet, which was a pair of glasses. It was the patron's pair of glasses, actually, where it was like, well, I've written a story about a spyglass before already, so where it can see things that you shouldn't be able to see. So I can't write, these aren't special glasses that can see something else. So what else can they be? And I've already written the story for it, but I just haven't released it. Yeah. Sometimes it comes to me from a story, and sometimes I build a story out of an object. And there's another plane flying overhead. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's sometimes I write stories a little bit. I wish I could do it more. That I could write an exhibit story based around like a theme that I want to tie into the museum. Usually, I have to reverse engineer to a degree, or come up with some sort of link between them after the fact, where the exhibit says something about the narrative that's happening with like typewriter. The typewriter in the final episode of the season was just written as a standalone little story, and then eventually I realized I wanted to end the season with the head of restoration taking a tour, and I was like, well, what story do I have that I think that the head of restoration might want to see? And so it was, went for the typewriter over the other ones that I had already written. But yeah, it's just like there's a plot beat for season 6 that I think could come up organically, like if only I could write a story to spark it. Like there's an idea that the guide is going to have, that I want the guide to have as like it tells an exhibit, and then it goes, that's it. I'm sorry, I have to go. But I just can't. It's just not how it works. It's just not how my writing works. Where I'm just like, here's the destination, right to it. It just doesn't work for me like that sometimes. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, and the end of Walt's story, just having, because I try to have at least an exhibit story and a narrative pushing story, or something like that in every episode, and then there's kind of like that crush in the middle of the season where I'm trying to bring Walt's story to a close. Just like having that was a pain to write, having the figuring out where all the bits of that should go, like having 2 narrative sections at the beginning and the end of episode 7 was really, eventually that came to that. But yeah. Oh, sorry, I just missed. Since Beast wasn't its true name, what would its true name have been? It's another plane. That's another question that I think is more interesting not to answer. I think that unanswered questions are very useful. Well, not useful. Worthwhile. How about that? I think that an unanswered question, especially in a supernatural story, like a story with some mystery, having unanswered questions is really compelling. In a way, having there be gaps in your understanding of certain characters and certain events, I think is really compelling. So I think not revealing the Beast's true name or anything is more interesting. It doesn't think of itself as just a beast, and that's why its true name isn't just the Beast, but it's got its own internal life that we can only see part of, and it's so different from us we can understand less than what we see. So yeah. Right, does anyone have any more questions? Let's see. I think that's probably a good spot to wrap up. I'll answer some questions. I'll answer questions in the Patreon section on the Discord as well, or in the comments to this Patreon post. For the time being. Oh, you have Irish elk art. I always love. Please do. I love the fan art. There's been not enough fan art lately, frankly. There's been some really lovely stuff. So yeah, I'm always happy to see some more fan art creations and stuff. I'm really hopeful that some of the weird designs that I'm kind of only partly describing in Tales from the Low City, I hope that creates some very. I'm intentionally leaving gaps like the beast's true name. I'm leaving gaps in the descriptions of the creatures I think the different beings in Tales from the Low City, so that people will have very different ideas of what they look like. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, thank you all so much for your time. Thank you. Oh, will the next season wrap up your old 10-season arc? No, I'm not saving. Yeah, it's wrapping up everything that I planned, for sure. The old 10-season arc idea was just how long that, at that point, I thought it would take me, and it's not taking me that long because I've gotten much more confident in my writing, and I've understood the story. I've understood how my writing style works, and I'm confident in having the different stories go at the same time. Like, I've had the Fae story and the what's the deal with security story happening at the same time, whereas before I was just like, well, it will take an entire season to get to this plot beat, will take an entire season to get to this plot beat, and it's just better this way. It's much better paced. There's a much more exciting speed with which we understand things. Yeah, I'm not cutting it short. I'm just telling it better and faster. And yeah, it just turns out it wasn't a 10-season arc, and it's better for it. And yeah, I think that to get it to 10 seasons, it would have felt incredibly padded, frankly. So yeah. But yeah, there is an idea for a new story. I keep talking about it like it's stay tuned for the Mistome 2. It's an idea. We'll see how I feel. I haven't written anything for it. I'm only a quarter of the way through writing season 6. Like, good lord, I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you all for supporting me. It feels amazing that I get to mostly survive on the support of people who like what I do. And I hope that you keep liking Mistome. I hope that you like Low City. There's no small amount of it does feel like there's a bit of pressure on me to get Low City to work, because this feels like the point where I get to find out if I'm a writer or the person who made Mistome and some other things. But I feel like it's going okay, and I feel like I can. What's the word? I feel like you guys are going to enjoy it, and if not, I only have myself to blame. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for everything, and yeah, goodbye. Oops, that's the wrong. Yeah. Oh yeah. Stay tuned. That was totally intentional. Stay tuned for Tales from the Low City.